Okay, let's try and unpack this. Nigeria, May 7th, 2025. We've got quite the snapshot for you today.
Yeah, looks like a busy one.
Definitely. Okay, quick rundown. Senate looks like it's going to pass Tinubu's tax bills. Still hearing about unrest in Plateau. There's a big new steel factory about to launch in Ogun.
That sounds significant.
Right. Then air travel in West Africa, still incredibly expensive. The UK might be tightening visa rules for Nigerians.
Yeah. The Japa context again.
Exactly. And Nigeria just signed off on a defense deal with China. So, yeah, you get the picture. A lot is going on.
You've really pulled together a very comprehensive look here. News from the 7th, plus some other bits and pieces. It really touches on so many critical parts of Nigerian life right now.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, isn't it? You, our listener, you've given us all this information: politics, security, the economy, tech stuff, social issues, even how Nigeria fits into the world picture. So our job today is to, dive into all this, try and pull out what's really important, and maybe connect some dots for you, give you a clearer idea of what's actually happening underneath the headlines.
Sounds good. It's a lot to cover.
It is. So with all this on the table, where do we even start?
Well, given just how much seems to be happening around the president, maybe the political side, Tinubu's actions might be a good place to jump in. What stood out to you there?
Yeah, okay. The sheer amount of activity around him is hard to miss. Like those tax bills expected to pass the Senate, that's pretty key for government money, right?
Crucial for their revenue plans, definitely.
And they're getting ready for his visit to Anambra, so maybe some focus on regional stuff. He's also meeting the Gencos, the power companies, about that massive debt.
The 4.7 trillion Naira figure, yeah, that's huge.
Exactly. Shows the pressure in the power sector. Plus, he got the FCT budget, gave some awards. It really looks like a leader juggling a lot of, very pressing things.
It's interesting how some of these things connect, though, like the tax bills, dealing with the Genco debt, the FCT budget. It all points to a real focus on managing the country's finances.
True.
And then the Anambra visit, maybe that's more about, reaching out regionally, strengthening political ties.
Makes sense. And just below that level, we're seeing some big political shifts, too, like those 6 reps from Delta leaving the PDP for the APC.
Right. In the House of Representatives, that kind of thing can really change the dynamics there.
Totally. And then you have the governor of Sokoto saying quite publicly he doesn't want Nigeria to be a one-party state. Feels like a comment on these very defections, maybe.
Could well be. It certainly highlights that tension, doesn't it? The fluidity of party politics. And the PDP itself is having to react, setting up that caretaker committee in Edo after their own people left.
Yeah, it shows how dynamic things are. These party switches, they matter for making laws, for how power is spread out. Governor Sewell's comment, it underlines why having multiple strong parties is important for democracy, especially when you see this kind of movement.
And the PDP having to reorganize just shows they're trying to, stabilize things after losing members.
And then adding another twist, someone who used to back Peter Obi is saying the Labour Party is dying. That's a strong word.
Very strong. Tells you something about the state of the opposition, or at least one view of it.
Right. And then there's Pat Utomi forming a shadow government, which the presidency seems to be just brushing off, saying Adesina isn't a threat. It's just a lot of political chess playing.
It does raise questions, doesn't it, about the health of the different parties. The Labour Party comment, the reaction to the shadow government, it suggests the opposition might be a bit fragmented right now.
Yeah.
And we should probably also note Tinubu reappointing Mustafa at the NBRDA, the boundary agency. Shows some continuity, too.
Good point. And Ganduje welcoming those PDP defectors in Edo, that's the APC, clearly trying to build up its strength there.
Exactly. Consolidating power.
And even lower down at the state assembly level, things are interesting. Banyu and Zamfara assemblies apparently ignored summons from the House of Reps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, while the reps themselves were pushing the federal government to beef up security. And a Senate committee is now overseeing the sole administrator in River State. Feels like different power centers pushing back and forth.
That really shows the complexity of a federal system, right? Different levels of government, different priorities. The reps worry about national security. The states maybe guard their own power. And the Senate looking into rivers. Could be federal interest or, intervention.
Okay, let's shift gears
to
something that's sadly always in the news. Security and justice. That report about suspected Fulani militants killing people in Plateau. It's just awful.
Deeply troubling, yes. 6 people, reportedly. And the condemnation after that student was killed in Kogi. It adds to a very worrying picture.
These incidents are just stark reminders, aren't they? The security challenges are persistent. The plateau violence points to those ongoing farmer-herder issues and the need for, well, better protection for communities.
Absolutely. And the student killing in Kogi, it's just tragic. Highlights how vulnerable people can feel and why justice is so critical.
And on the legal side, quite a few things happening. Iyabo Ogo confirmed she got an invite from the EFCC, the Financial Crimes Agency, after her daughter's wedding. No details on why, though.
That's bound to get people talking. Even without the specifics, EFCC invitations always do.
And the lawyer for someone called VDM says they haven't been told why their client is still being detained.
That raises flags about due process, doesn't it? Transparency in the legal system.
Yeah. On a brighter note, though, the DSS, the State Security Service, apparently took Arugandad from the International Press Center off their watch list after 40 years.
40 years. Wow, that's quite something. Maybe signals a change in approach or just clearing old files. Hard to say.
Who knows? And the IPOB situation keeps making news. There was witness testimony about Nnamdi Kanu supposedly forming the Eastern Security Network.
Right, offering one viewpoint on how that started.
And then a judge kicked his in-law out of court for apparently recording the proceedings live.
Shows the court trying to control the situation, maintain order during sensitive trials.
And locally, Oyo State Police are reportedly giving out a large sum, 20 billion naira, to families of officers who died in service.
That's a very important gesture, recognizing their sacrifice and supporting the families left behind. Commendable.
Now, defense. This seems like a big focus area. Nigeria's apparently made an ammunition deal with China. And the defense minister, Matawali, was actually in China having high-level talks about boosting Nigeria's defense capabilities.
Interesting timing, especially with the rising insecurity we're seeing. And you mentioned calls for rearming the military.
Yeah, from the National Assembly and even retired military leaders. Seems like a sense of urgency there.
That makes sense. The move towards China for equipment, the calls for rearmament, it suggests a real push to strengthen the military's hand against various threats.
And the National Security Advisor, Ribadu, is pushing ECOWAS to act on IED threats too. Shows it's a regional problem.
Definitely. Those things don't respect borders. And sadly, we also heard about that cult leader in Bayelsa killed by his own gang members. Shows how complex violence can be, sometimes internal to groups.
Okay, let's pivot to the economy and business. Always crucial. Seems like some good news here.
Hopefully. What do we got?
Well, that $400 million steel factory in Ogun is apparently about to start up. Could be big for local manufacturing.
Yeah, potentially reducing reliance on imports. That would be positive.
And Dangote is reportedly boosting polypropylene production, aiming for exports. Good for the trade balance.
Always encouraging to see export growth.
Plus, Semben, the small business agency, is reporting good numbers on job creation and helping entrepreneurs.
If those figures hold up, that's really positive. SMEs are the engine room for a lot of jobs, aren't they? So fostering them is key.
But, it's never that simple. There are challenges, too. Remember the GenCos, the power generators?
A huge debt. Yes.
They're urgently asking for a meeting with Tinubu about that 4.7 trillion naira they're owed. Highlights the financial strain there.
Absolutely. That debt overhang is a serious issue for the whole power sector's stability.
On the plus side for energy, there's a partnership between NLNG and CPLAT to boost gas supply. That's good.
Sure, gas is definitely needed.
But then Renaissance Energy had an oil leak. Stopped their production. Shows the risks in oil.
Always a factor in extraction industries, environmental and production risks.
And marketers are apparently changing pump prices because of crude oil costs fluctuating. Plus, Petroen, the Retailers Association, is warning that the ban on foreign fuel imports shouldn't risk Nigeria's energy security.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Trying to boost local refining versus making sure there's enough fuel reliably available. That warning makes sense.
Yeah. It paints a really complex picture of the energy sector, lots of moving parts.
And you also mentioned Afreximbank funding the African Energy Bank. That signals a wider continental push on energy investment.
Right. And the aviation minister, Kiyamo, visiting Embraer about aircraft leasing, maybe trying to boost the local airline industry.
Could be. Leasing can be a way to expand fleets without massive upfront capital. Interesting move.
And quickly on other business news, investors on the NGX, the stock exchange, apparently had some gains. Generally good for confidence.
Market sentiment, yeah.
Yeah.
Always watched closely.
And British American Tobacco, BATN, is giving grants to graduates for agribusiness. Kind of an interesting corporate project meeting agriculture.
That is interesting. Investing in agribusiness has huge potential for Nigeria, for food security and diversification.
Okay, moving on. Social issues, development. A real mix here, too. That student loan emergency meeting got canceled suddenly.
Oh, that's disappointing. People were watching that closely for access to education. Wonder what happened there.
Yeah, raises questions. But the government claims its primary health care reforms are working, saying more people are using the facilities.
Well, if that's true, that's genuinely good news. Better access to basic healthcare is fundamental.
And NIMC launched its NIN authentication system. Should make verifying identity easier, hopefully.
Technically, yes. Streamlining those processes is important in a digital age.
And the NDPC, the data protection body, is starting a virtual academy on data protection. Seems important with everything moving online.
Very important. Building digital literacy and awareness about data privacy is crucial.
We also saw the First Lady and the NDLEA chair, Marwa, pushing states to do more about drug abuse.
A persistent social problem needs that kind of high-level push.
And governors' wives are campaigning for measles and rubella immunization.
Great to see that focus on public health, especially for kids. Coordinated campaigns can make a real difference.
There are also bigger regional plans, like the SEDC Southeast Development Commission talking about a modern railway for the region.
Ambitious. Rail could really transform connectivity and the economy there if it happens.
But there are bumps, too. Resident doctors in the FCT had a warning strike. Suggests issues in the healthcare system still.
Yeah, strikes are usually a sign of deeper problems needing attention. Pay, conditions, resources.
And they're still screening people in Aghaniland for health effects from old oil spills. Shows the long tail of environmental damage.
A very long and tragic tale. The need for cleanup and healthcare there continues years later.
Yeah, we saw state governors making pledges too. Oti in Abia pushing immunization. Uzudima in Imo promising to cut maternal and child deaths.
Good to see state-level leadership focusing on those key health goals. It really matters.
Now, technology and innovation. Always some cool stuff here. A Nigerian researcher apparently found a cheaper way to make a catalyst for green hydrogen.
Wow, okay. That could be genuinely groundbreaking for renewable energy if it pans out. Green hydrogen is a big focus globally.
Right. And President Tinubu himself praised a young Nigerian who supposedly made the world's smallest GPS device.
That's amazing. Incredible ingenuity. Really showcases the talent out there.
Definitely. And OPay apparently improved its verification system too, trying to make digital payments safer.
Necessary steps as digital finance grows. Building trust and security is key.
Okay, let's zoom out. The international picture. We mentioned Russia-Ukraine attacks briefly, and ECOWAS is talking about those high airfares in West Africa. Still a problem.
Yeah, makes regional travel and business harder than it should be.
But the big one for many Nigerians is that Japa trend. People looking for opportunities elsewhere. And now the UK is thinking about tighter visa rules specifically for Nigerians.
That could really impact a lot of people's plans, couldn't it? It reflects a wider global trend of countries reviewing immigration, but it hits close to home there.
For sure. On a positive international note, though, 3 Nigerians got elected into IFATSA, the Air Traffic Controllers Federation.
Oh, excellent. Nice to see Nigerian expertise recognized on that global stage. Important sector.
Now, for something a bit different, our Did You Know facts. Ready?
Hit me.
Okay, first, Mercury and Venus. Only planets in our solar system with 0 moons.
Huh. I actually didn't know that. Interesting.
And second, Mike Tyson apparently once offered a zookeeper $10,000 to let him fight a gorilla.
Get out. Seriously? That's peak Mike Tyson, I guess. Wow.
Right. Just wild. Okay, and today in history, on this day back in 2000, Vladimir Putin became president of Russia.
Ah, a very significant date in recent world history.
Yeah, and the info highlighted the two sides, didn't it? High approval ratings inside Russia, people saying living standards got better, but also lots of international criticism about, authoritarianism.
A very contested legacy, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really depends on who you ask and what metrics you use.
And it was paired with that quote from Alice Walker. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any.
That's a powerful thought. Really makes you think about individual agency, doesn't it? In any context, political or personal.
It does. Okay, finally, we had a whole bunch of local news snippets. Really shows what's happening on the ground across Nigeria.
Yeah, sometimes the most interesting stuff is local. What do we have?
Let's see. Ekiti government denying borrowing criticisms. A Jigawa commissioner returning unspent Ramadan money. That's unusual.
Very unusual and commendable if true.
Kano government funding cars for the emir. The Olu of Warri sending condolences. Tricycle guys in Anambra petitioning about levies.
Everyday life issues, levees, transport.
Exactly. Billing problems with the Enugu disco, always power issues somewhere. Ogun appointed a sports ambassador, Enugu praised a former commissioner, Ondo denied supporting illegal forest settlers, Nasarawa planning welding jobs.
Just a real mix of governance, local disputes, development initiatives.
Right, and SCOAN planning revivals in South Africa and Nigeria. Nigeria having a pavilion at a London creative show, Rotary appointing an image person. It's just life happening everywhere.
It's a great reminder, isn't it, that while we focus on the big national stories, there's this constant activity, these local concerns and achievements happening all over the country.
Totally. And it kind of loops back to that theme that popped up Nigeria first.
Oh, yes, you mentioned that.
Tinubu's foreign affairs aide saying it's overdue, and Senator Ndum praising Tinubu for banning some foreign goods, feels like a deliberate push.
It does seem like a conscious policy direction, doesn't it? Promoting local industry, self-reliance, it's a nationalist sentiment gaining traction.
But that ban on foreign goods, it's got implications, right?
Oh, absolutely. It aims to help local producers, but it could affect prices, consumer choice, even relationships with trading partners. It's one we'll definitely need to watch closely.
And lastly, that point about the UTME results, the big university entrance exam.
Right, the education minister's take.
Saying the high failure rate proves their anti-cheating measures are working.
That's one interpretation. I mean, tackling malpractice is vital, no doubt. But blaming high failures solely on catching cheats, it might be more complicated.
How so?
Well, couldn't it also reflect issues with, say, the curriculum, teaching quality? Maybe the exam itself was particularly hard this year. You'd probably need more data to say for sure it's only about catching cheats.
Good point. It's a perspective that probably needs more digging into within the education world.
Definitely food for thought there.
So, okay, we've covered a lot. Bringing this deep dive to a close, it's really clear, isn't it? Just looking at roughly one day's news plus a few extras gives you this incredibly busy, complex picture of Nigeria in May 2025.
Absolutely. You've got serious security issues, big economic shifts happening, constant political maneuvering.
But also, you see the innovation, right? The tech stuff. You see efforts to develop social programs, that strong sense of wanting Nigeria to be self-reliant.
Yeah, it's that mix of challenge and dynamism. By going a bit deeper than just the headlines, hopefully we've given you, our listener, a bit more nuance, maybe shown some connections you hadn't spotted.
Exactly. Hope it was useful. And just to leave you with something to chew on. With everything we've talked about, technology breakthroughs, political changes, those really tough security problems, what's the one area you think is going to have the biggest impact on Nigeria's future in, say, the next year? What should we all be watching most closely?